Turning now to our Housing Resources Division, I think you'll be pleased to know that we have now received 102 referrals from the County Department of Health and Human Services for applicants to our emergency housing vouchers.
Irene?
Yes.
I've just been informed that we might not be live streaming. So if we could just pause for a minute while we figure that out.
Okay.
Looks like we are now. It looked like it started a little late, but it says that we are now.
All right. So perhaps I'll go back to the resident services report and just redo that.
Give us 1 second, just because if the beginning part of the meeting wasn't recorded and live streamed, then it might be worth restarting.
Okay.
Yes. So just 1 second.
Sure.
It looks like we are live now, so I think you should be okay to go ahead.
All right.
We need to start over again, or do we need to continue where we were in the report from Kareem?
Why don't you just reopen the meeting, Roy?
Yeah. Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to the December the 8th, 2021 meeting of the Housing Opportunity Commission. I am Roy Priest, the chair of the commission, and I'd like to introduce you to our fellow commissioners. Fran Kelleher, the vice chair, Rick Nelson, chair pro tem, Commissioners Linda Kroom, Commissioner Pamela Bird, Commissioner Jeffrey Merkowitz, joining us at the start of the meeting. Hopefully we'll be joined by Commissioner Jackie Simon. The first order of business for the agenda is a community forum. There was no one that signed up for this portion of the agenda, so we will move to the report of the Acting Executive Director, Kareem Brown.
Okay. Good afternoon, commissioners, staff, and the public. For the record, I'm Kareem Brown, Acting Executive Director for the Housing Opportunities Commission, and this is my report for December 8th, 2021. A very brief report today. First, we'll focus on HOC's closing on a bond issuance of $111 million of multifamily housing development bonds that will fund 3 mortgages covering 5 multifamily developments owned by HOC that are being re-syndicated into tax credit ownerships. The bonds were issued under the HOC 96 multifamily indenture. 104 million were issued as tax-exempt bonds and 7 million as taxable bonds. The interest rate yielded from this bond issuance is 3.15%. Units involved is 577 units, and the developments are across the county, and all mortgages will be insured under the FHA risk share program. Next to the Resident Services Division, which has been active as usual, with a focus this month on assisting residents with rent relief and housing stabilization to ensure that they can remain housed. Because the month of November, Thanksgiving is in the month of November, much of the focus has been on assisting our households with food distribution, food donation to ensure that those in need do have access to proper nutrition. And as the pandemic continues, the staff of Resident Services has also been assisting our households with access to vaccinations across our properties. Now on to the Housing Resources Division. You'll be thrilled to know that we continue to have increases in the number of referrals from the county's Department of Health and Human Services to the emergency vouchers, and we now are up to 102 referrals for 118 vouchers. 78 of those applicants have been determined to be eligible, and so we continue to process through in hopes of filling those 118 vouchers as quickly as possible. And for the the regular housing choice voucher program, as of the writing of this report, we're still at 93%, but we're not letting up, and are pushing forward with the with plans to get to a stable 95% utilization rate under that program. There are currently 367 families who've been issued vouchers and are searching for suitable housing in the marketplace. And so, as I said, we're continuing to push hard to ensure that we're utilized to the levels that we need to while maintaining the adequate reserves as are suggested by HUD. So that essentially concludes my report today. But before I turn it over back to the chair, I would like to really just say, for me personally, it's been a pretty challenging year for HOC. There have been a lot of changes, but I must commend the staff of HOC for a pretty incredible year. I think staff has remained focused and resilient. And I think some of the things that we've accomplished exceeded even my expectations. And I think we've done quite well in serving the citizens of Montgomery County. And I'm quite proud of what we've done. And I thank the commission for its support and the staff for their support of me, especially in the last 4 months. And so I'm taking this opportunity to wish everybody happy holidays and be well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kayreen. Are there any questions that anyone wants to pose to Kayreen? Commissioner Nelson?
Yeah, I have a question, probably more for Lynn Hayes than for Kayreen.
Yeah.
What is the difficulty with the 300 people getting units for the voucher program?
For many of them, it's issues with credit, issues with having money for security deposits. A lot of people have had health issues. We've issued several voucher extensions past the 90-day initial period, but those are the main things.
I thought we had a workaround on the security deposit.
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Kayreen, didn't we have a bond of some sort that, or is that just for our properties?
I think not for security deposit, but for folks with for where there were damages to units. I don't think there's for security deposit, Lynn.
No,
That's
yeah.
I don't think it's for security deposits. Darcel, are you on?
Is that answer your question, Commissioner Nelson?
On that.
I'd like to have you get back to me, because I recall us having some discussions, and I thought that there was an alternative to their having the security deposit, which was cheaper for the residents. Anyway, obviously I must be wrong. So
yeah, the only assistance that I'm aware of is for the emergency housing voucher families. So there are funds available for those families, but for regular housing choice voucher, no, there's no assistance.
I'm not sure I remember, but I don't know if Commissioner Nelson is thinking, was there some insurance option or something?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
There was a surety bond.
I think he's talking about the surety bonds for the HOC properties.
Yeah. Yes. Sharita, can you speak to that a little bit more, please? Sorry.
So we changed from accepting security deposit and went to a bond. So the customers that live in HOC housing can apply for like $1,000 bond and pay like $175.
Is there any way that we can utilize something like that for our voucher clients?
And is
I
it-
can definitely get with Darcel to see if we can contact Assurant and see how that will work with the housing choice voucher customers.
And is it only?
I realize that we're dealing with a private owner, but I mean, these are really much more difficult times for our voucher clients. So if we could work something out, it would be useful.
Yeah, I think it's only available for those who live in units that are owned by HOC. So we'll investigate and see if that's an option for private landlords.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Lynn,
Yes.
how long do they, if they get an extension, how long is the extension for once they get the voucher, if they don't find a voucher within the 60 days? How long is the extension?
So the initial voucher is issued for 90 days, and then the extension is granted in 30-day increments.
Okay. And they only get one extension?
No, they could have more than one. They would be required to provide a search record showing what their efforts have been during the term of the voucher. Then we would review it and make a decision as to whether or not an additional extension would be warranted.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Brown? If there are none, then I will move the agenda to the Commissioner Exchange. There are several things that I would like to report on as part of this, and then I will open it up for all the other commissioners who have something to say during this period of time on the agenda. In September of 2021, a complaint was filed against HOC with the State of Maryland's Open Meeting Compliance Board. The complainant alleged that the HOC failed to comply with the Open Meetings Act because the link to the September 1st, 2021 commission meeting was malfunctioning. The chat feature that allows the public to object to HOC's closed meetings did not work, and a quorum of the commission attended at least one committee meeting. On December the 6th, 2021, the board issued an opinion finding only one violation of the Open Meeting Act. Specifically, the board determined that HOC violated the Open Meetings Act when a quorum of the commission attended a committee meeting. Accordingly, going forward, only committee members will attend committee meetings. As chair, I would like to thank the board for its time in reviewing the complaint and issuing its opinion. The HOC will continue to evolve to ensure adherence to the Open Meetings Act requirements. I want to thank you for that. I want to note that to the commissioners. Secondly, I would like to report, and let me say that those of you who have a report from the acting executive director noted that she had a rather lengthy description of a presentation that was made on December the 6th before the County Council's Planning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee related to the Housing Production Fund. I attended that meeting along with Kayleen Brown and members of the HOC staff. And so in discussion for preparation for this meeting, we talked about the fact that I would report about this as part of the commission's exchange. And so I want to acknowledge the fact that she did in fact include it in her information to the board, to the commission. This presentation to the Fed of the County Council was very effectively presented by the staff and was well received by the committee of the County Council. I want to thank the staff for all the work that was done to put together the presentation that was delivered, and I appreciate having had the opportunity to work with them in advancing that product that went before the County Council. For those of you who may not know, the Housing Production Fund was a special appropriation that was created by the Montgomery County Council on March 2021. And it provided that these funds could be used to invest in the creation of affordable housing, and specifically could be utilized in conjunction with additional HOC investments, private investment, and conventional construction to finance construction and lease-up phases for new construction projects. And I will underscore for new construction projects. One of the things that we made a point about in our presentation was to not only stress what has been done in terms of new construction, but also the fact that what we are doing also in the area of preservation. And going forward, I think in future discussions with the county council, we will talk about how to potentially expand the utilization of that fund to include something besides just new construction as a way to, in fact, increase affordable housing. And they seem to be open for discussion, and we will be meeting with them again in January. It was interesting to note that the first amount of money made available under the fund was $50 million. That was supported by a $3.4 million appropriation from the county council. And that was the amount that they pledged as part of establishing the program in the beginning. And it's worth noting that as a result of the issuance of our first bonds for the program, that because of the interest rates, we were able to, in fact, finance those bonds, that the county's commitment of the 3.4 for the first year has been reduced to $3,071,000. So we have generated back for additional uses, over $300,000 because of the fact of the favorable investment environment where we were in at the time we sold the bonds. But these were limited obligation bonds that were sold to support the Housing Production Fund. The first project that we will fund out of this money is, in fact, the West Side Shady Grove, which is a $121 million, 268-unit transit-oriented new construction development that's located near the Shady Grove Metro Station. And of the 268 units, 30% or 80 units will be affordable, including 67 units at 50% AMI and 13 units at 65% AMI. It's also worth noting that in January, we closed on a $14.3 million HIF loan from the county, and that as a result of our financing with the Housing Production Fund, that we will be able to repay the county's short-term loan from the HIF. So that they're getting their money back fairly quickly on this transaction that's going forward. We expect construction to be completed on the west side by January of 2023. The balance of the funds will be used to support development of Hillendale Gateway, which is a 463-unit mixed-use, mixed-income development located in Silver Spring, Maryland, at the intersection of New Hampshire Avenue and Interstate 495. And as you all know, I won't go through all the details about this because the commission is very familiar with our Hillendale development and what we've been doing there. So as a result of having the availability of this $50 million of the Housing Production Fund, we are able to immediately invest those monies into two major projects that will produce significant affordable housing for the county and for those persons who are desirous of looking for affordable housing. So we also have in our pipeline additional projects identified, and we were able to show the county council specifically that we have forecast at least going forward through 2028, the ability to demonstrate funds and projects that will be available to use these dollars. I think that if we had more money, we could do more. And so I think there's some appetite, at least from discussion at that occasion, for looking at entertaining the possibility of how we could infuse additional funding into the Housing Production Fund. Success breeds success. So hopefully we can show that from the work we've already done that we are committed to, in fact, use the dollars if more were made available to us. So again, I want to just acknowledge the work that was done by the staff to present a very good picture of what we've been doing in terms of use of the Housing Production Fund, and also gave the county council a very clear picture of the developments that we have been doing and involved in now since about 2009 and where we are in those developments and what we'll be doing going forward related to not only new production, but also to preservation. And we talked a little bit about the whole valley development and the continuing need to work in partnership with the county related to the use of HIF funds, as well as other resources that may be available to assist in affordable housing. So I thought it was a very good discussion and presentation, and it will seem to be, again, well received. So I want to thank the staff again for that. I don't know if anyone on the commissioners want to comment. I see Jackie Simons has her hand up. Commissioner Simon.
I would like to reiterate your congratulations to the staff for both the presentation, but more so for the work that resulted in the presentation and the creativity regarding financing and how quickly the staff was able to move on the new funds that were made available to us. The pipeline, as we are able to keep it looking forward, we're going to be able to go as fast as the resources are available to us toward meeting the county's affordable housing goal. And I think it's important that the public understand that the county government has established a very aggressive goal in concert with the Council of Governments in the region, and stepped up to the plate. And we're very fortunate to have their response to the creativity of our staff. And so I think all who participated and worked in that really deserve kudos. And I trust that they are going to move forward in exploring other opportunities that will generate the council's support. So.
Thank you very much. The last thing I would like to do is in fact to follow the lead of our acting executive director, and that is acknowledging the fact that this is our final meeting for the month of December. And this is the end of the calendar year 2021. And the commission has been very busy this year, 2021, a lot of really significant projects that we have been fortunate enough to have been presented to us and reviewed, and many of them approved for us to get involved with during the course of the year that will generate at the end of the line a number of new affordable units in the county. And so that's been a lot of work that's been done to do that. We've also continued to do outstanding work in supporting services to our residents. Kay Brown indicated some of those work being done in her report in today's meeting and also earlier in our November meeting as well. So I want to acknowledge the work of the commissioners who are important to making sure that the ongoing obligations that we have as commissioners and ensuring the fiduciary opportunities that we have responsibility for are adhered to in the work that we do, but also ensures that the residents of the county are having an outstanding agency to deliver services and assure that there will be affordable housing available going forward now and into the future. I also want to acknowledge the staff. Without the staff, all that we may want to do and envision as commissioners would not happen without high quality work that comes from our staff. And I feel that over the time we have assembled a significantly well-honed, talented, committed staff doing the work of providing affordability and assuring the accomplishment of the mission of HOC. So I want to acknowledge the staff's work done this past year and thank them very much. And also want to just thank the community of people who have been interested enough to have come to our meetings, to have offered advice, to have given us understanding about issues that we have to deal with as they relate to them as residents and as persons living in our community. We want to acknowledge the fact that all the work that we do depends upon our staff, our commission, and also getting inputs from our other stakeholders, nonprofits, the county government, the county executive, the county council, and all those who contribute to the work that's important to this county and being a leader in this country about the production of affordable housing. So I'm very honored on behalf of my other commissioners to say thank you to the staff and to everyone, and to wish everyone a very prosperous and enjoyable holiday season. This probably will be a little different than 2020 or 2019 when COVID prevented many of us from being able to enjoy the real wonders and the wonderment of the Christmas holiday. This is my favorite season of the year. And I'm really looking forward to being able to spend quality, enjoyable time with family and friends and people in the community. It's also a time to remember others, to not only give of those closest to us, but remember somebody in our community who may need a helping hand, who may need to be lifted up for this season and shown and demonstrated that in fact that we are all blessed with the ability to support one another in times of crisis, in times of plenty. So please, everyone, think about others as we enjoy this holiday season. And I want to again wish everyone a happy holiday and ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season. Thank you all very much. Now we're open for any other comments from other commissioners.
Well, I'd like to associate myself with the comments of the chair. I don't think there's much I could add that would improve on that. But just to say that, you know, we are in a period of transition, and I've been impressed, you know, with the staff that, you know, we continue to be opportunistic and aggressively pursuing our mission. And, you know, so I really appreciate that. But yes, wishing everybody a happy holidays, and Roy, really appreciate as well your comments about looking out for others, so who may need a helping hand.
Perhaps it would be useful to say that people could contribute to the HOC community partners with gift cards or other things that could help and assist some of our residents. And I'm sure that is available on our website.
Thank you.
Yep.
If there are no other comments from commissioners, I will go back to the agenda. And the next order of business for us to look at is the approval of minutes. These are the approval of minutes for November the 3rd closed session, November 4th special session, November 19th special session, November 19th closed special session, November 22nd special session, and November 22nd closed special session. Can I get a motion to approve the cited minutes?
So moved.
Been moved and
Second.
seconded. Moved by Commissioner Simon, seconded by Commissioner Nelson to approve the minutes. Are there any questions? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. Motion carried unanimously. We will now go to the next order of business, which is the closed and special session ratification. And this is a ratification of action taken in closed special session on November 19th related to the approval of various actions related to the ownership and development of the Lindley. This is resolution 21-111ASR. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
I second.
It's been probably moved by Jackie Simon and approved by Commissioner Kelleher. Are there any questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed is nay. So ordered. The next item before us is a consent item related to the request to authorize the acting chief financial officer to have the same authority as a chief financial officer as an authorized signer on HOC's bank accounts. Can I get a motion to approve this consent item?
So moved.
Moved
I
by
second.
Commissioner Kuhn. Are there any questions? All those in favor of this motion to approve the consent item signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed is nay. So ordered. We also had note for the record, we had one vote from the dog.
I was trying to figure out whether that was an objection or not.
Next, we will go into the committee reports and recommendations. The first report will be from our Administrative and Regulatory Committee, which is chaired by Commissioner Kelleher.
Thank you, Chair Roy. The Administrative Committee met and the Administrative and Regulatory Committee met to discuss the fair market rents and the position that HOC might like to take regarding its voucher payment standard for this year. I will say that while the building and development side of the house gets a lot of attention from this committee because necessarily it involves a lot of contracts. The voucher payment side of the house has been at least equally active this year, and in fact has not only expanded into several new programs that HUD made available, but has become significantly more efficient in the way it's been handling our pre-existing types of vouchers. What we have to talk about today with HOC's voucher payment standard will actually help with some of the concerns that were raised earlier about making it easier for people who get vouchers to actually end up in appropriate housing within the county's private market. And I would invite, I believe, Lynn Hayes to talk about this first, but I also hope she will point out some improvements that staff made in terms of their use of new quantitative techniques and automation tools to make this somewhat onerous process that we go through for HUD and for our residents each year, because I am one of the people that loves data and loves watching data-driven decisions, and I was very excited to see how staff improved in that regard this year. So with that, Lynn, do you want to take it away?
Sure. Good afternoon, commissioners. For the record, I'm Lynn Hayes, the director of the Housing Resources Division, and actually Giddy Paul, our management analyst, is going to present this item, and then we'll answer any questions that you may have.
Thank
Good
you.
afternoon, commissioners. My name is Giddy Paul, management analyst for Housing Resource Division. Annually, HUD publishes the fair market rents for determining the voucher payment standards for our Housing Choice Voucher Program. The VPS represents the maximum amount of subsidy that a public housing authority can pay to a private landlord. Voucher payment standards may range from 90 to 110% of the fair market rents that are published. HUD required in January 1st of 2018 that 24 of the designated metropolitan areas started using fair market, small area fair market rents. HOC is one of the 24 metropolitan areas required to implement this small area fair market rent. There are 71 zip codes in our jurisdiction, Montgomery County. Overall, we had to analyze 355 fair market rent values for each bedroom and zip code. Historically, we've suggested that our payment standards, voucher payment standards, are congruent to the FMR while attempting to alleviate rent burden for families. This year, we used Solver, an Excel feature, to automate this heavily manual process. We added the constraint of 90 to 110% for each bedroom size and each zip code. We tasked the function to find the best solution for our consumers and unburden as many families as possible. After assessing several percentile values from the 90 to 110%, we are proposing the implementation of 110% of the FMRs across all bedroom sizes and zip codes. So the recommended payment standard will allow clients to access better quality housing, schools, medical facilities, and transportation. The current proposal also allows us to decrease rent burden for our families from 21 to 10%. Staff anticipates that the housing assistant payments will increase by $10.3 million. And this was confirmed with our CFO that we can incur the cost through our reserve balance. The suggested voucher payment standard will reduce our reserve balance to $6.5 million, reducing the funds that would be potentially at risk for recaptured by HUD. If approved, fiscal year 2022 VPS will be applied for newly admitted applicants and at the annual recertification for all existing households. Staff recommends that the Commission approve the FY22 recommended voucher payment standards identified in the Commission packet and Resolution 21-113. We're available to answer any questions that you may have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Geety. What I would just add for my fellow commissioners, part of what we're doing here is it may not be obvious to everyone, but when we give a voucher and the voucher recipient then pays 30% of their income and the remainder of the rent up to the fair market rent and the standard that HOC sets of that 90 to 100% of HUD's fair market rent. If in fact the actual market rent is higher than the combination of 30% of the residents' income and our 90 to 110% of the fair market rent that HUD sets, then the resident remains having to pay any difference if they choose to move into such a residence. So we do have voucher holders who remain rent burdened because of the difficulty of finding actually available market rents that meet HUD's fair market rent with our 100% standard that we've had in the past. What the staff did by using a linear programming process with constraints for each of the zip codes with market rents and what our voucher holders were actually paying is came up with an optimization whereby if we move from 100% to 110% as our voucher payment standard against HUD's fair market rent, then we will unburden about 1,300 voucher holders who are actually paying some segment beyond what the fair market rent that HUD says should be the case is. Now, I'm sure HUD calculates their fair market rents with the best data they have available, but we all know how quickly the market has been changing. And this linear programming process that the staff used allowed them to optimize to reduce the rent burden for current voucher holders, to maintain our 5% reserve, which HUD recommends for our voucher program, and to have still some funds that we can continue to expand the number of vouchers that we give to the community in hopes of trying to keep up with how quickly our waiting list is expanding. So they did employ the technique in a way to try to come up with a win-win-win situation. And I applaud the work that they put in trying to do this. And I would therefore move that we adopt Resolution 21-113 to change our current voucher payment standard from 100% up to next year being 110% of HUD's fair market values.
Second that.
It's been probably moved by Commissioner Kelleher and seconded by Commissioner Croom to approve Resolution 21-113. Are there any questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, no, nay. Resolution approved unanimously. Thank you all very much for the work that was done by the committee as well as by the staff to arrive at this, I think, awesome situation where we're going to have so many residents who will benefit by a decrease in their rent burden requirements. And so that's a great outcome.
How soon will that go into effect?
January.
Right.
So the next item on the agenda is a report from the Development and Finance Committee that's chaired by Commissioner Jackie Simon.
The first item on our agenda this evening is the Heritage Emery Grove concept development and approval to execute a purchase for disposition of the Emery Grove Village and Camp Hill Square. This is a significant effort that is dependent on the cooperation of the county executive and the planning board. And we're excited to have the support to accomplish the completion of work in Emery Grove that was begun decades ago. And I believe Jay Shepherd is our staff person that is handling this item this evening. Is that correct? Zach.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm actually going to walk everybody through it. Thank you very much, Commissioner Simon. And I think you put it really well. This really is, in many ways, trying to put right, well-intentioned work that was done back in the 60s and 70s but which did not deliver on certain needed incomes or needed outcomes at the time. So this Heritage Emery Grove development, we can kind of start on the executive summary, which is page 74 of the packet. So there's kind of three components here. There is where HOC originally started in all this, which is the two properties that it owns, Camp Hill Square and Emery Grove Village, and the disposition of that property, the structured disposition for very specific housing and affordable housing outcomes, led to a conversation with Emery Grove United Methodist Church that was formed by formerly enslaved people at the end of the Civil War, and has been at the center of this community as part of the county for really since then. And the properties that they had accumulated. And on the next slide, you can see how our properties, HOC and the church, fit into what is a larger idea. And as Commissioner Simon mentioned, these are the balance of these properties. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are HOC and the church. The balance of the properties to the north are predominantly owned by the county and are remnants of the original historical Emery Grove community. In the 70s, in the 60s and 70s, urban renewal was brought to this area with well-intentioned to bring paved roads and water and sewer infrastructure. And for a number of reasons, much of the originally 300-acre community was developed for housing, but it was housing that was largely unaffordable to the existing residents of the community. The portions of the overall urban renewal development that were supposed to serve that community to some degree didn't happen, but also were curtailed by some of the larger economic events of the 70s. HOC eventually showed up in the 80s and built Camp Hill Square and Emery Grove Village to provide, in fact, the deep affordable housing that was really needed from the outset. But of course, by then, the folks that had lived there really from the 1860s to the 1960s, unfortunately, had most of those people had been displaced to other areas, while still many of them retaining a connection to the community and certainly to Emery Grove United Methodist Church. And so in talking with the church, we heard, they were able to educate us on the history of the area. And of course, we brought our thinking caps and tools to the table to try to figure out, what could be done here that not only achieves important affordable housing goals, but also potentially could bring some level of reconciliation to the displacement history, the very tragic and unfortunate displacement history. And so on the next slide, we came up with really a concept redevelopment. This is by no means the absolute correct answer or the thing we will absolutely do or any of those sorts of things. But what we wanted to show was a concept of what was achievable here, to really try to recapture some of the great things about historical Emery Grove. It was a tight-knit community. It was a self-sufficient community. It had, it was mixed use. It had, all the commercial elements that folks needed were there. It was not the sort of collection of subdivisions and cul-de-sacs that you see today. And so we put forth a concept in conjunction with the church, and we presented this to the county. We have been met with resounding support, and the county executive himself was really enthusiastic about what we presented. And so as a result, he directed his staff to begin working with HOC to unencumber these properties such that they could be included in this wider redevelopment. The goals of this wider redevelopment are really manifold, but there are some key ones. One, the church was very interested in developing affordable housing with the properties that it owns, and that's highlighted by the Emery Grove Church, Romero, Montgomery County component here. And they wanted to do that because they wanted to provide opportunities for folks who had been displaced in the past to return to the community. And to do that, in some cases, there needed to be housing that was sufficiently affordable for that to occur. And that's sort of how they came to this, to their properties and to this concept that we ultimately produced together. But we also wanted to provide a collection of both for sale and rental opportunities, family and senior opportunities, but also to put forward a concept that felt more like the tight-knit community with a town center, a mix of uses that used to exist, better pedestrian connectivity, so that in fact that you're not just getting around this area in just the car. So there used to be myriad walking paths in historical Emery Grove, and so that was something we thought about as we proposed this particular concept. And so in order to begin working with the county to execute this transfer, we're requesting some feasibility funding, and also to consummate the disposition of HOC's Emery Grove and Camp Hill in the fashion that you see here. That is the one part of this concept that is what we intend to do, based on many meetings with the commission and discussions, and getting a clear idea of what the commission wanted to see happen here. And so there is that mix of for sale and rental. There is 30% affordability across the site. There's the participation of Habitat for Humanity to see that the 30% of the for sale, that is MPDUs, can actually achieve lower AMIs, much lower AMIs than even just simply the MPDU level. And also providing that rental product so that if there are families at Camp Hill Square that want to stay in this specific area, that they can be, and that ultimately the architecture is unified. So there's no sense that these specific pieces are actually distinct in any way from one another. And so we are also requesting a little bit of funding there to help consummate the disposition process, because there's a couple of land use deliverables that we have to achieve, including an abandonment of some right of way, and also is pursuit of a very targeted zoning text amendment. I'll roll through these next slides really quickly because that was that's largely the gist of it. You know, on the next few pages, there's really a recap of the disposition history. About a year ago, the commission approved an LOI for this disposition, and the purchase and sale agreement that we're looking for approval on signing does not depart in any way from that LOI. The reason for the year delay was really to make sure that we had a path forward on these land use deliverables that I just mentioned, to make sure that we weren't entering into a development that couldn't happen, you know, to be clear. So on slide 79, as it relates to the disposition, you know, we are looking to execute the contract here in January, and the developers, the buyer's developers, would potentially break ground in the second quarter of 2023. We wanted to highlight that even the market rate rents at the within the missing middle rental, even those are you know, just slightly above MPDU levels. So it's providing a really good range of affordability across the entire property. On the next slide, and there's actually a further update to even what's here, as things are really coming together, but the commission has also extended its support to the church through a loan to help the church to acquire the last single-family home it needed to complete its aggregation on its side of the road. You can see in the bottom left where that home is located and how it affects the you know, the church's ability to yield homes. And very fortunately, the church was able to get to an acquisition price with the owner of that home that fit below the commission's approved amount for that acquisition loan. The loan also provides a portion to allow the church to pay off its remaining mortgage at the house next door to this one, which it had already owned. And that way, and the loan is outstanding for 5 years. It is collateralized by both homes. And this provides, we think, ample time to allow the church to get to a redevelopment concept that it can then finance and proceed with. At that point of construction financing is when HOC would be reimbursed for this assistance. Just a little more on the history, the next slide. Just again emphasizing that the church has been at the center of this community for hundreds of years, a long time, really long time. And it was a significant community. It was one of the most significant communities for African Americans post-Civil War. You know, Emory Grove is mentioned throughout the history of many of those communities. They themselves were interconnected across the county, particularly as segregation persisted. These communities assisted each other. And you know, you get some of the sense of what used to be there, you know, churches and barbershops and famous music halls and so forth. It was, you know, it was a very well-established community that was notable. One of the most notable things about the community, if you go to the slide 83, is that it was the home to one of the larger Methodist camp meetings in the Mid-Atlantic. People came from many states away during the summers to worship, and that campground, that worship ground, is where the county now owns property, which is Johnson's local park. That baseball diamond used to be a part of historical Emory Grove and was a stop for the Negro Leagues, and Emory Grove itself had its own baseball team that played there, and the outdoor pool and community center that were built there for the benefit of this community. After some struggle, there was an attempt to not actually locate these amenities as part of the urban renewal, but they they were, but the land that all of these things are located on was the old worship ground for Emory Grove United Methodist Church and for that Camp Revival. And so, behind all these properties, there's a very rich history. And part of what we're doing here is trying to bring that history back to light because it's a significant history. So the balance of the slides until the end are really just going through the concept in general, but the most important slide for the concept is really slide 87, which is the county executive's support. He was very gracious in allowing us time to go through this concept. It's not a quick one, especially when I'm talking. And there are a number of things that were potentially possible for this to be included in this plan. And the executive is very enthusiastic about all of them. He had some questions and due diligence, which we will of course meet, but in general, very supportive of it. And so in the coming months, you will see us again because we'll be providing you a formal request around the ultimate transfer of the county properties. But you can see that he was willing to walk through a number of important actions in support of this idea. The next slide is just a breakdown of the funding needs. Again, it's really two pieces. It's $100,000 toward these remaining land use needs to prepare Emory Grove Village and Camp Hill Square for sale, and then a budget for a feasibility budget to help to allow staff to work with the county Department of General Services on this transfer to begin some community outreach. Eventually begin some community outreach, and to make sure that the concept that we're providing and as it's revised in the future, that we have a really good handle on what the properties need from an entitlement perspective and a zoning perspective. And so, and then also as in order to sort of complete an action that the commission took back in October, we also have a request to draw from the PNC real estate line of credit to formally fund the loan that the commission approved for acquisition for the church. So we've got 4 issues here for your consideration. One is authorizing the acting executive director to execute the PSA, the purchase and sale agreement, for the disposition of Emory Grove and Camp Hill Square, according to all of the specific terms and covenants that the commission was seeking in that document. To approve a combined budget of $272,500 for the 2 pieces of the one land use and the other feasibility. Approval to draw on the line for the same amount for those purposes, and then the approval to draw on the line to fund the loan to the church for acquisition of 17810 Washington Grove Lane and the retiring of the church's existing mortgage on the neighboring home that it owns. So thank you for your patience. I'll pause for any questions or comments.
Zach, I'd like to just make 2 comments. One, because it's something that has been a principle of HOC, is that this transaction requires that there's to be equitable distribution of the MPDUs with a unified exterior architecture, so that they are an inherent part of the community and not set aside and isolated in any way. And the other part of history is that the shopping center, the Flower Hill Shopping Center, was, I believe, the first wheelchair accessible shopping center in Montgomery County. There was even a dentist who had a chair where patients could be treated in their wheelchairs rather than having to transfer. And it's a good commercial resource to this plan that provides all one's basic daily needs, and it's in walking distance. So the preservation and bringing some of that vitality back into the community and a population to take advantage of the community center and the park and the old former school building and so forth is really noteworthy. And I think it fits into the goal and desire of the commission to bring the best that can be brought to a community. And the partnerships really are a very significant part of this effort. And I thank you and the staff for the reaching out and coming together with something that can be, we can all be very proud of and help keep a promise that was made many years ago that just did not get completed. I would like to move approval of resolution 21-114A, which provides for the purchase agreement for disposition of Emery Grove Village and Camp Hill Square and approval of a pre-development budget.
Do we need a separate motion on each one of the resolutions, or
Yes,
can
we
we do
do.
them all together?
I think they ought
Separately,
to be separate.
Okay.
yes. You have a second for the approval of
I would
resolution?
like to second it, but I'd also like to say that as a historical note, this brings me full circle.
Me
I
too.
was actually involved at HUD in the planning process for this project. So I'm glad to finally see some many years later that we're actually going to have happen what was promised to be happening way back there in the late 60s when I was actively involved in this. So I'm really pleased that we're doing it and hope that it works. So I second.
So been properly moved by Commissioner Simon, seconded by Commissioner Nelson to approve resolution 21-114A. Are there any questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay.
Commissioner Byrd, I abstain.
One abstention from Commissioner Byrd.
The next resolution is resolution 21-114B, which is approval to draw the $272,500 to implement the previous motion and resolution to draw the funds from our real estate PNC Bank's real estate line of credit for the feasibility funding of the development.
And second, if that was a motion.
It was, I'm sorry.
It's properly motion made by Commissioner Simon, seconded by Commissioner Nelson to approve resolution 21-114B. Are there any questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay.
Abstain, Commissioner Byrd.
Abstention, one abstention. Motion carries 6.
Next item is resolution number 21-114C, which is the approval to draw $720,000 on the PNC real estate line of credit as a source for the loan to Emery Grove United Methodist Church for the acquisition of 17810 Washington Grove Lane and retire the existing mortgage on 17812 Washington Grove Lane.
I second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Simon, seconded by Commissioner Nelson to approve resolution 21-114C. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposers, nay.
I abstain, Commissioner Byrd.
One abstention from Commissioner Byrd. With that, the actions related to this motion related to Harriet Emery Grove have been approved. Thank you all very much for the work that was done. And let me just note for the record that this is an example of an outstanding partnership. It was initiated to a large extent by the parishioners and faith leader of the United Methodist Church of Emmy Grove, and also the partnership that has been formed by HOC and with the county support, which really was very important. So I just want to acknowledge that and hold that up as a model of work and cooperative work that can be done to advance affordable housing and long-term redevelopment plans in a neighborhood that is historically, is very historical in the history of Montgomery County. So thank you all for your work. Next item, Jackie.
The next item is the approval to engage, enter into a contract with Eastern Concrete Construction to replace 6 roofs on 6 of the buildings at Cider Mill Apartments. I'm not sure who's going to be presenting this. Kareem?
Millicent Angwin from Property Asset Manager and Property Management.
Great.
Millicent. If you're speaking, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
My name is Millicent Anglin, and I'm an asset manager in the property management department. Cider Mill is an 861-unit fixed income property located in Gaithersburg and is currently 96% occupied. Grady Management is a third-party property management company. The property is comprised of 72 buildings, and the roofs on 6 buildings need immediate replacement. Grady Management and Construction Insight, an engineering firm, completed an emergency procurement to replace these roofs, and 6 responses were received. Of the 6 bids, only Eastern Concrete Restoration has immediate supply of the TPO roof membrane material. Eastern Concrete's bid is the 4th lowest of the bids received. The 3 lowest bidders do not anticipate obtaining the TPO membrane until spring or summer 2022. Staff does not recommend delaying the roof replacement through the winter season when rain and snow may result in further property damage. The source of funds to replace the roofs are the property's replacement reserves, which have a current balance of $5 million. The budget office will include the anticipated roof replacement cost of $845,000 in the second quarter fiscal 22 capital budget amendment request to the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee on December 21st for approval by the Commission in January 2022. I'm requesting that the Commission authorize the Acting Executive Director to accept a bid from Eastern Concrete Restoration for $845,000 to replace 6 roofs at Cider Mill Apartments and direct Grady Management to execute a contract with Eastern Concrete Restoration to replace these 6 roofs. Do you have any questions?
I believe that in considering this issue, the committee was concerned about the needs of the rest of the roofs in the development. And because we saw in seeking bids on these 6 that were actively leaking, that the supply chain and the manufacturing of materials and their lack of projection as to when they could do the job, that we hope the staff would begin to assess and be sure that the needs of the rest of the buildings could be taken care of. And I trust that you've been examining that issue as well.
Yes, we are currently examining the feasibility of repairing or replacing the remaining roofs at the property. This would be included in the upcoming fiscal 23 budget.
Wonderful.
Okay, so right now, you said that you needed the money now, but what's going to happen what's going to happen with the places that you have here and they don't get done immediately, because you just stated that this wouldn't happen, that you wouldn't do this until after the weather breaks. So,
Go
ahead.
We'll proceed with replacing 6 roofs right now.
Right now,
Yes.
immediately, okay.
Eastern Concrete Restoration is prepared to proceed and start work within 10 days of authorization.
Okay, that's good, because I was
Linda.
thinking about the residents.
Right. Linda, the reason we're going with the more expensive bid is so that we can do it now because of
Okay,
the other bids would be delayed.
okay, sounds good.
Well,
Can I get a motion on this, then we can have any further discussion?
I'll second it.
So moved.
Linda Crum.
Okay, a motion made by Linda, seconded by Commissioner Nelson.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm
Approve
sorry.
Resolution 21-115.
Yes.
Any questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. So ordered. Thank you very much. That ends our committee report section of the agenda. And we will now move to a limited item on the agenda. Resolution 21-116, which is approval of a firm for executive recruiting. I will turn to Commissioner Kelleher for this discussion.
You're on mute.
Thank you. Appreciate that. The Housing Opportunities Commission Procurement Office issued a request for proposals, RFP 2287, in order to obtain the services of an executive recruiter to assist with our recruitment of a new executive director. The RFP 2287 was issued on October 18th, and we received 2 responses, one from the Organizational Leadership Edge and the second from TELUS Executive Search. We conducted interviews with both of the responders on November 22nd. The evaluation team then scored each of the firms based on the criteria in the RFP and the submitted written proposals as well as their interviews. The ratings that were scored were a total score for the Organizational Leadership Edge of 91.3 and TELUS Executive Search of 59. We have that the Organizational Leadership Edge ranked not only higher overall, but it also ranked highest in terms of its technical approach, its qualifications, and its fees. The scores noted that the Organizational Leadership Edge had extensive experience with recruiting executive directors for housing agencies or other affordable housing organizations, and had proof that it had a 98% rate of the people who had been recruited still being in their positions 4 years after they had been hired, indicating that they, in fact, are capable of finding appropriate people for each of the organizations for which they handle recruiters. The other competitor, the TELUS Executive Search firm, did not demonstrate any experience working for housing agencies or affordable housing related organizations. Given the results of the RFP and the proposals and the scoring, I move that we approve Resolution 21-116 to approve the selection of the Organizational Leadership Edge to provide executive recruiter services for the commission.
second.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Kelleher, seconded by Commissioner Simon, I think,
Yes.
to approve Resolution 21-116. Are there any questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed is nay. So ordered. Thank you very much. Pursuant to section 3-3.
I just want to, I'm glad we're moving forward with the organization we selected. Just want to thank TELUS as well for submitting their proposal.
Thank you. And we will properly notify both firms about the decision that has been made by the commission. And again, formally do what Commissioner Merkowitz has indicated in thanking them for their effort to apply to provide the services to the commission. Pursuant to section 3-305B and D of the General Provisions Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, I move to adopt a written closing statement dated December the 8th, 2021, and to adjourn this open session to a closed session to discuss the proposal submitted in response to RFP 2252 for professional auditing services. The meeting must be closed in order to discuss the merits of the proposals. Public discussion of this topic would adversely impact HOC's ability to participate in future competitive bidding for auditing services because firms would be hesitant to provide necessary confidential and proprietary information and could be hesitant to work with the commission. This could result in HOC not obtaining quality auditing services, which is vital to the agency. The statutory section that allows this meeting to be closed is section 3-305B14. Please note that this same topic was discussed in a closed meeting of the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee on November 17, 2021. This meeting is to discuss the same materials with the entire commission and to seek approval. If any member of the public wishes to object to the closed meeting, please comment in the YouTube chat box or contact HOC's General Counsel. Instructions can be found in the State of Emergency Open Meeting Procedures, which is posted on HOC's website. Do I have a second?
I second.
And moved by Commissioner Kuhn. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed is nay. So ordered. Thank you. And the meeting is now adjourned.
Happy holidays to the staff.
Yes.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, guys.
Same to you.
Wow.
Thank you.